Our next speaker is Tomasz Żuradzki from Jagiellonian University in Krakow, and he will be telling us, as you can see on the screen, about human enhancement in bioethical discussions, a computational approach. Tomasz, take it from here.
Thank you very much. Hello from Poland. So the main motivation for our study was to understand discussions about human enhancement in bioethics. As you probably all aware, these discussions are very vivid and very fashionable in some sense in the last few years. So yes, there is a quotation from John Harris. He's one of leading bioethics scholar. This citation is from 2011. And he said that enhancement, human enhancement is coming to the forefront of bioethical scholarship for interesting combination of reasons. It combines cutting-edge science with mainstream philosophy. And our starting point for our research were two epistemological questions about this approach. First, we wanted to delineate what bioethical scholarship related to human enhancement means. This is, I would say, less interesting question. And the more interesting question is the question, how can we verify such particular claims about the state of the art in some field? So how can we, what data can we have to verify the claim that some discussions combine cutting-edge science with mainstream philosophy? So our hypothesis was that if really this Harris claim is true, we could expect a very specific observable pattern of observable patterns in this bioethical discussions on human enhancement. In particular, we can expect that we see some specific citation patterns. For example, one could assume that what Harris means by this cutting-edge science or connection with cutting-edge science, it may mean that there are many references, for example, to new and important studies from biosciences, for example, let's say about gene editing. And on the other hand, one could also expect many references to philosophical discussions that are relevant in the context of human enhancement. And this is surprising. This is not what we found in our study. So let's go in which way we tried to understand or verify this claim about discussions about human enhancement in bioethics. First, we collected corpus, and this slide is quite similar, I think, to a slide that was presented by Vilius Dransejka few minutes ago or an hour ago, because we are using the same corpus of papers. So we just invited experts in bioethics to provide a list of key journals in this field, and we decided to analyze 7 main bioethics journals. You see their covers on the screen. In this way, we collected 20,000 documents that were published between 1971 and 2021. And we, in this particular study, which is, we are using two methods. First, we used topic modeling, and I think many people before me mentioned this method, so I'm not going to describe it because probably many or most of us know what is it. Just I want to say that we used algorithm that identifies topics. So topics are understood as set of terms that tend to be used together across documents in the corpus. And then we interpreted topics. So we associated these topics with actual discrete themes that are discussed in the analyzed collection of our text. And for this particular study, we also used citation analysis. We assumed that highly cited documents by some corpus may serve as concept symbols for example, scientific ideas within a given corpus. So by analyzing citation flows, we can have kind of insight into the corpus thematic focus, and we have kind of insight into genealogy of its main concept, from what these concepts are coming from. So how particularly we use this method in our case study? So first we use topic modeling in a, let's say, quite non-standard way. I will explain what I have in mind later. We use topic modeling in this case study to delineate a part of bioethics corpus that deals with human enhancement. And then we use citation analysis to measure a degree of openness of this part of bioethics to, first, specialized knowledge produced in biomedicine about the modification of human life, and second, about philosophical insights on the possibility of fundamental modification of human lives, human condition. So this is our previous study. I mean, we are using the same corpus in our previous study and in this case study. Our previous study was general study about 50 years of bioethics and philosophy of medicine, and in these 7 main journals in this last 50 years. And we were just asking very general question: what topics have moved in and out of fashion in the last 50 years? What are the hottest topics now? Which topics tend to occur together in scholarly papers, etc. And this was main result of our previous study. So this is like a map of 50 years of bioethics. You see that node size reflects the topic prominence in our corpus, edge size reflects correlation for a given pair of topics. And in this case study I would like to present, we concentrated only on 5 particular topics. So we started with topic enhancement. The name is our own name, obviously. And we tried to analyze 4 most correlated topics with this topic enhancement. So we have a enhancement subcorpus, let's say, that is marked on the screen by this red line. And this subcorpus consists of 1,360 texts that are most characteristic papers for these 5 topics. So we just assume that some threshold of probability of belonging to these topics is relevant for our study. What is also important, that topic enhancement, and this is one of the reasons why we wanted to focus in this particular case study on topic enhancement and correlated topics. The reason is that this topic was the, let's say, winner in overall increase in prominence in 50 years of bioethics. So this topic was completely non-existent at the beginning of bioethics, and now it's quite prominent in the last decade that we analyzed, I mean 2011, 2020. So these are the most relevant terms for these 5 topics. As you see, for example, in case of enhancement, you see that it was quite easy to understand or to interpret this result of topic modeling as a topic enhancement, because it consists or terms like enhancement, enhanced technology, intervention, cognitive capacity, trait, morally improve, enhancement, etc. And the same was with other topics in this subcluster. So it was quite easy to interpret what these topics are about. We also consulted the most characteristic papers for each of these topics. And then in the next step, we just analyzed the citation flow from this enhancement subcorpus to journals indexed by the Web of Science that represent different disciplines. So we just analyzed about almost 11,000 citations from this 1,360 papers. And as you see, the most citation goes to medical research and clinical medicine. So at first sight, one can say that, okay, Harris is right. This discussion about human enhancement are really very close to science or real science and real scientific papers and real scientific developments. But when we try to analyze more closely what is cited in bioethics, it is not so clear that this citation that I started with, I mean, this citation from Harris is completely right. Why? First of all, the problem is that obviously we cannot read 5,000 papers. Yes, we cannot check what is exactly cited. So we decided to analyze samples, 2 samples. First sample was a random sample of papers that are cited from Bioethical for enhancement cluster. And second sample was top 10 articles, the most cited articles in biomedical research and clinical medicine from enhancement subcorpus. And what was the most surprising was that most, in case of top 10, most of cited papers are not scientific studies or descriptions or scientific studies, but some other, let's say, commentaries or other editorial materials. We called this type of papers as normative papers, so they do not present any new information or any new development or any new study. They mostly present some opinion, commentary, or some normative view on some issues. For example, let's enhance human population, or gene editing in case of humans should be forbidden. This is a case of articles that we called normative articles. In this category, there are also guidelines. For example, many biomedical research or clinical medicine journals publish some kinds of guidelines in which way we should proceed with technologies that may involve human enhancement. And here is an example of top 10 papers cited from these 2 main disciplines, I mean biomedical research and clinical medicine. As you see, these papers that are marked in yellow, these are like real studies, I mean real scientific papers. All other papers are commentaries, I mean papers that we called normative, or papers that have normative content. So finally, we realized that what is most important for enhancement discussion, bioethical discussions about human enhancement, is in some way self-referential citation to own papers. As you see, about 1/3 of all citations from enhancement cluster go to bioethics itself. And what is also interesting is that these papers are very are cited more often than other papers. For example, the most cited paper received 80 citations in bioethics and only 22 citations in biomedical research. And average citation rate is also higher within bioethics than in case of other fields. Also, in case of philosophy, as you see, it is quite similar pattern that we observed. So our conclusion is that neither biosciences nor philosophy provide crucial concepts for bioethical discussions or on enhancing human life. Instead, a significant part of citation flow from enhancement corpus is self-referential. That is, frequently cites either bioethics or normative commentaries in science journals, or bioethics discussions in philosophy journals. Thus, bioethical discussions are organized around few concepts that originated within bioethical discussions themselves. For example, about procreative beneficence. with very negligible interest in their empirical feasibility or conceptual embedding in the mainstream philosophical discussion. So we have much more material that I was able to present during my short presentation. So I invite you to engage with your own presentation, and so you can check and have your own interpretations on our data that are available on this website you see. And finally, I would like to thank Piotr Bystranowski and to Vilius Jansejka, who are co-authors of this paper, and the European Research Council for funding this research. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Tomasz. And I already see we have questions. Stefan.
The comment is that I think that this is a very significant finding because within that discipline, there's a lot of financial interest, and one would want, I think, to have ethical commentary coming from a different source than the people that are financially incentivized to promote this technology. So I just wanted to highlight that as what I see as a majorly significant implication of your finding. Briefly, could you explain how you got that temporal dimension in your topic models, please?
You mean temporal dimension in our main study about trends, for example?
I guess so. Early on, you made that's it right there. So I thought that was somehow a topic model, temporal topic model.
Yes. So we just this graph just is quite simple. It just shows prominence of topics that are related to enhancement in our general corpus. So as I mentioned at the beginning, this topics were completely non-existent, and later they're significant part of our corpus. So in this case, we just compared, for example, prominence in first, I think there is a mistake, in first 10 years. We started with 76 because at the beginning of bioethics, there were only one journal, Hastings Center, then there were two next. So we started first decade to count this exactly in 76. And in the first decade until 85, we can compare how many papers that are characteristics for these topics were visible and in our corpus in comparison with the last decade. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Okay. Well, I'm still, let me try and be a little more clear about my question. I wasn't sure if you had two topic models that were, no, okay, got it then. So it's one topic model, and what you do is you find the papers that all fall under a topic with a certain threshold, and you look at their temporal trajectory. Okay, thank you.
Yes. We had just arbitrary threshold that above, as far as I remember, 0.15, we classified paper as belonging to enhancement. If one paper had a probability of belonging to the paper, we classify this as enhancement paper, as characteristic for enhancement paper. And we verified, especially we verified this paper that were quite low at this scale, and in most cases, in majority of cases, they are very about enhancement or other related topics. So I think in this case, we verified our arbitrary threshold, let's say.
Thank you, Stefan and Thomas. We have time for maybe one more question. Christoph?
Yes, thanks for the very nice talk. Very interesting work that you're doing. Also on the same corpus. It's good to do that. And I was wondering. So I have two questions. First, could you go back to the flow picture because I was not sure I understood properly.
To which one?
The flow, the citation flow. Yeah, this one, for instance. So I was not sure how to understand or how to interpret the what is there. On the left is the number of citations
Yes,
in the articles in which the five topics are the most dominant, right? Okay, and then I was wondering the clustering that you made, bioethics, biomedical research, and then the other sub-clustering, general biomedical research and so forth. How did you get these?
Yes, so on the left side, you are right. These are citations, not all citations, but only citations that are visible in Web of Science from our subcorpus of 1,360 papers. So we found 10,800 citations that are visible in Web of Science to other journals indexed by Web of Science. And then you have in the middle, you have classification of National Foundation of Science, as I remember, American classification of disciplines that classifies all journals only to one discipline, which is convenient in comparison to other classifications. With one exception, we have bioethics here, and bioethics is understood as a 22 journals. It is quite complicated because we are using these 22 journals to our next study. So we didn't want to take into account only 7 journals that were based for our corpus study, but we wanted to treat some other journals that are clearly bioethical as journal belonging to bioethics. So in this categorization we used by National Science Foundation, there is no category of bioethics. This category of bioethics was created by us. It consists 7 journals that are the basis for our corpus, and some other journals that we, as experts, judged are very bioethical. So we just switched them from, for example, clinical medicine or from philosophy and treat them as bioethics journal. We have obviously the list of our changes in our paper. Is it clear?
Okay, yes, but then I was wondering, how do you, I mean, I was wondering why you need to rely on this external classification, which is now some sort of a hybrid classification, because it's part external and it's journal-based and part yourself. So it's a bit hybrid. Because if I understood correctly, what you really want to look at is whether there is, I mean, if I reformulate it in my own words, is whether there is some science, some actual science in enhancement stuff.
Yeah.
And so my initial idea would be to say, you know, okay, you extracted already enhancement papers that are more, you know, since it's a bioethics corpus, it's already, you know, these are articles that will talk about enhancement from a high level perspective, and let's see if they cite science, and which type of science that they cite. So so you could actually, okay, I see what you mean. So you went and fished all the references or some of the references, but the issue I have, sorry, I'm trying to sort of formulate as,
yeah, I see your point, I think, yeah,
is if you, so some of these citations, you plug them into, say, biomedical research because it's in the biomedical research, but then you find that the citation is not actually, the article is not actually biomedical hardcore research, but it's actually, you know, a perspective paper or philosophical paper. And so here you say, well, you know, so another way around that would have been maybe, I don't know if I can suggest that, but to get all the citations, once you get, so when you have the list of references, you go fish for the article, for the abstracts, for instance, they're readily available. Then you do you could do a topic modeling, for instance, of all the abstracts, and then try to see what the abstracts of these cited papers are really about. And this way, you will avoid falling into the uncertainties of classification, journal classifications. So
yes,
I don't know if
thank
that
you. This
could
is very
be a
good.
useful suggestion or not, but I'm not very well
This is
articulated.
extremely useful suggestion, I would say. Obviously, you are fully right that in some sense we do not need this journal classification. We use this classification because we expected to find that if some bioethics journal refers to science journal, this is like real papers about, let's say, gene editing or something like this. And this was like, I think this method stemmed from our initial hypothesis, what we expected to find. But you are right that maybe we do not even need this classification, and we can just check what is cited by some other method to check exactly how much science is cited. And we expected that it should be many, but or much. Yeah, thank you very much for this extremely helpful comment. I will need to think more about this if we, yeah, your proposal is excellent. I need to digest it.
Thank you very much, Christoph and Tomasz. Thank you very much again.